Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webcast viewers. My name is Fred Mifflin, President of the Canadian Club of Toronto and your host today. Viewers, we're very pleased that you are joining us. For 120 years, our club has provided a forum for leaders in all aspects of society to share their ideas with us and to challenge our thinking. Our Ontario series this year is such a forum. Through our programs and activities, we offer access to dynamic political, business, and public figures from across Canada and around the world. Before I formally introduce our guest speaker today, here's a snapshot of some of our upcoming events. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 5th, Fred Gibbons, Chair of Colleges Ontario and President of Northern College, will discuss the future of college education in Ontario. And next Tuesday, April 11th, a distinguished panel of financial services experts will continue our Disruptors series, looking at the impact of technology on the B2B side of the financial services industry. To order your tickets or to learn more about the club, please visit our website at canadianclub.org. You can also join the conversation via Twitter and Instagram by following us at CDNCLUBTO or by using that hashtag. I want to express special thanks to today's event sponsor, Bruce Power, represented by Pat Delzell. Thank you for your generous support. I also want to acknowledge the young leaders who are with us today from the University of Toronto Transportation Research Institute. Welcome and thank you for joining us. And Minister, they're going to keep you honest on new transportation technology. So now our guest speaker. Ontario's Transportation Minister has a tough assignment. Since becoming the Minister in 2014, the Honourable Stephen Del Duca has been tasked with overseeing our provincial transit and transportational system. Potholes, delays, and gridlock aside, he's focused on making sure that people and products get to where they need to quickly and efficiently. First elected to the Ontario Legislature in 2012, he initially served as Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Finance. The Minister was re-elected in 2014 and appointed to his current portfolio shortly thereafter. Under his tenure, GO stations are being created or modernized and new transit systems are being explored. Environmental sustainability is a critical issue that's being considered in developing Ontario's transportation infrastructure. Minister Del Duca's portfolio impacts the economy in many positive ways, including creating new jobs, revitalizing communities across the province, and ensuring that Ontario goods and services are delivered in a cost-effective, and competitive manner. The Vaughan MPP studied political science and history at U of T in Carleton before obtaining a law degree at Osgoode Hall. He has a proven track record of dedicated community involvement. Before heading to Queen's Park, he chaired the annual Vaughan Hospital fundraising gala. As a result of his leadership, more than $1 million was raised. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions for the Minister, please fill out the Q&A cards on your tables, and one of our staff will collect them. Minister Del Duca, welcome. The Canadian Club of Toronto's podium is yours.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin, of course, by thanking Fred for his very kind introduction. I also want to thank him for not walking away with my binder from the podium. That would have made my speech even more unpredictable than is usually the case. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you, and I want to say thanks to Fred not only for the introduction, but also to him and the rest of the team here at the Canadian Club for giving me the chance to be with all of you this afternoon. This is my first opportunity to ever have spoken from this particular podium though over the years, I've had many opportunities to be sitting in the audience at a wide variety of Canadian Club events or speeches, so this is truly an honor for me. And I have some remarks, of course, that I'm going to go through, but it's interesting. I like to start off most of my speeches with stories, and today I actually didn't have a story to tell you at all, just until literally a couple of minutes ago. And I'm going to bring this one up not to embarrass somebody who works in my office, but I am a former political staffer. It wasn't mentioned officially in the bio. I used to work at Queen's Park, and I also did some work for a federal politician or two over the years. And it's interesting because I knew the binder was up here on the podium today, and just before Fred came to the podium, one of my staff, who shall remain nameless, came almost sprinting over. You might not have noticed this, and she handed me this paper. And I know Jen Sloan saw this happen, and so of course I started looking frantically because perhaps I thought there was a late-breaking revision or addition to what is effectively kind of a paper napkin. For those who don't think in politics we make things up or write them on back of napkins, we sometimes do. Not policies per se, but sometimes we do. In any event, I'm looking at it thinking, oh my goodness, what have I forgotten in the speech? Is there someone here I have to recognize or acknowledge? But it's blank on all sides. So I look over at this particular staffer, who I'm pretty sure is embarrassed right now, and she points to my head and tells me that I'm supposed to dab my head with this paper. Maybe it's the new wax I started using this morning, I'm not quite sure, but it is what it is. So again, I want to thank the Canadian Club for giving me this opportunity. There are a couple of people I do want to acknowledge right off the top in the crowd. We are joined here today by three, as far as I know, by three elected officials. It was already mentioned that Diane Bernil, who is the MPP for Kitchener Centre and serves as my parliamentary assistant at transportation, is here. I want to thank Diane not only for being here at the luncheon today, but for consistently holding my feet to the fire and working closely with the team at MTO to make sure that we are building it right, not just for Kitchener and for Waterloo, but for all of the province of Ontario. And we're joined as well by Arthur Potts, the MPP for Beaches East York. And Arthur is doing a great job on behalf of his community, and I want to thank him for being here as well today. And just over here, I see my good friend Wayne Emerson, who is the chair of York Region, my home region, and I want to thank Wayne for coming all the way down to hear these remarks today. So I am extremely grateful not only to have this opportunity, but grateful to see so many familiar faces in this room. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today. And I want to thank you also for being collectively passionate about making sure that your government continues to work hard to successfully build a stronger province. So Fred mentioned this. I was appointed to serve as the Minister of Transportation back in June of 2014. It's been almost 3 years. And while every job has both its highs and its lows, I truly love the work that I'm allowed to do on a day-to-day basis. We have made and continue to make extremely important progress on a wide variety of issues that affect the hard-working families of this province each and every single day. We are supporting the expansion of more public transit than any government in history, both here in Toronto, right around the GTHA, and in the 99 communities, literally from Wawa to Windsor and from Blind River to Brampton, right across Ontario. We're investing in the critical expansions of strategically important highway corridors, such as the 407 East, the 427, the 410, and many more. We're working hard to remain at the leading edge of road safety by strengthening penalties for distracted and alcohol-impaired driving, by creating the first ever sanctions in Ontario history for drug-impaired driving, and by introducing mandatory entry-level training for commercial truck drivers. And in an effort to respond to the transportation transformation that is currently underway, we have created a regulatory framework to permit the testing of automated or driverless vehicles on our roads. And today, because of that opportunity that we've created, we have 4 participants who are already enrolled in the pilot, with more good news to come on this front in the near future. So I'm proud of the progress that's been made under the leadership of Premier Kathleen Wynne. But again, I know, as you all do, that we still have much more to do. Very often in the world of governing, and I've been around this business for a long time. I got elected about 5 years ago, but I started out in politics as an activist about 25 or 27 years ago. Very often in the world of governing, we can all get bogged down in living hour to hour, following that 24/7 news cycle, and managing issues as they confront us, and that's understandable. That's kind of how our political system has evolved, particularly in recent years. From time to time, I think this makes it a little bit harder for all of us to effectively take stock of where we are, to see issues in their complete context, and to make collective choices that will produce positive outcomes. There is no doubt that we are living in interesting and somewhat uncertain times. And we don't have to look far to see the challenges that we are facing. The decisions made recently, for example, by British and American voters, have shaken the foundation of the globalized economy. And that can be nerve-wracking for a province like ours that relies on trade to be successful. In addition, with each passing month, we see more and more media reports about the impact of automation on our traditional workforce, impacts particularly in manufacturing, and there is increased anxiety, which is understandable, about who among us might be left behind in the next economic era. And at the same time, the rise of crass right-wing populism that seems mostly to focus on assigning blame with alternative facts, rather than creating lasting solutions rooted in sound and responsible public policy, threatens to fray the social fabric that we have proudly created over decades in Ontario. When dealing with these and the dozens of other issues that often swirl constantly around decision-makers in government, it's critical that our leadership be clear-eyed, have a strong sense of itself, and have the experience to keep us securely on track. Since 2003, we have been fortunate in this province because both Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne have epitomized the kind of leadership that has been needed and is needed now more than ever. And though today, many of those specific issues are new, and many are coming at us with increasing speed, we can draw strength from knowing that as Ontarians, we have risen to the challenge before, and we will again. Think back for a moment. In 2003, we, as Liberals, returned to government at Queen's Park after 13 years in opposition, and we found that our publicly funded healthcare and our publicly funded education systems were in chaos. Our physical infrastructure was on the verge of collapse. Our environmental stewardship was seriously lacking, and our deficit was billions more than we had been led to believe was the case. At that critical moment, we could have cowered in the face of significant setbacks, admitted defeat, and retreated from our ambitious commitments to restore public services and build the province up. In other words, we could have taken the easy way out and given Ontarians far less than they deserved. But we didn't. When most said it couldn't be done, and when many said it shouldn't be done, we did what the people of this province have been doing for 150 years. We rolled up our sleeves, we made the hard decisions, and we got to work. Over the next decade, we closed our coal plants. We built dozens of new hospitals and courthouses and literally hundreds of new schools. We created the Greenbelt. We delivered more affordable post-secondary education and full-day kindergarten. Along the way, we expanded free vaccinations for newborns, increased apprenticeships to prepare our workforce, and began a significant build-out of transit and transportation infrastructure. And we did all of this and more while being fiscally responsible, working closely with the private sector to create thousands of new jobs, and creating the Ontario Child Benefit to help lift thousands of our youngest and their families out of poverty. But we didn't stop there, because we knew that work wasn't done either. Over the last 4 years, Premier Kathleen Wynne and every single member of our caucus have worked extremely hard to build a more resilient and inclusive economy and to provide a more secure and prosperous future for the people that we're proud to represent. Our Premier successfully led the fight to create a more generous pension so that tens of thousands of Ontarians and now millions of Canadians will have adequate income security after a lifetime of work. We've continued to expand access to post-secondary education by making tuition free for low-income families, more affordable for middle-income families, because we know that how far one goes with their education should be determined by their talent and by their efforts and not by their wealth. We've strengthened workplace protections against sexual harassment. We've created the Anti-Racism Directorate and have done more to ensure that our Indigenous peoples have a real chance to fully participate in both our economy and in our society. We have consistently increased our minimum wage and provided certainty and predictability both for those who earn it and for those who employ them. We have moved aggressively forward in the fight against cataclysmic climate change, and we've developed a comprehensive action plan that recognizes that this is both essential environmental policy and also a blueprint for a new economic strategy. Lastly, in 2014, we committed to something called Moving Ontario Forward, a 10-year, $31.5 billion plan that will help build and is building transit in the GTHA and support all forms of critical infrastructure in communities outside the GTHA. All of this has been achieved against the backdrop of a strong economy, an economy in which unemployment is low, and an economy that is projected to be one of the strongest performers across Canada this year, with a budget that's on track to be balanced soon. Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw near to our 150th birthday as a province, we should celebrate the fact that this is the Ontario that we live in. We are not perfect, but we are resilient, we are inclusive, we celebrate our diversity, and we're thriving. Most importantly, from my perspective, we are uniquely positioned to respond effectively to those challenges that I outlined earlier in my remarks because fundamentally, we understand the significance of consistently creating opportunity. This notion of creating opportunity is, to me, the very historical foundation for what makes our province successful, and it must remain and will remain the primary mandate and mission of our government. I want to take just a quick moment to share a brief story with you, a personal story. My father came to this country in September of 1958 from Italy at the age of 20. Now, he was fortunate in that he had studied civil engineering before leaving Italy, and he was coming here to Canada to be reunited with his father and with a large extended family. But he couldn't speak English, and he had no real way of knowing if this new adventure, this pursuit of a better life, would actually work out. Within 2 years, he completed his education and was working, and he went on to a career in construction management that lasted almost without interruption until June of last year, when, just shy of his 78th birthday, he retired. The GTHA is populated with structures from the very first residential condo on University Avenue to the venerable Toronto Star building that my dad worked on. His efforts helped in their own way, in his own way, to leave a mark or to make a mark on the physical landscape of our region. But his example taught me to value tenacity and perseverance, to place the well-being of family and friends above all else, and to recognize that hard work and determination can produce remarkable results. Now, my mom arrived in Toronto from Scotland 3 years after my father did, and she was also 20. She came with friends. She had no family here whatsoever. But of course, there were no language barriers unless you count Glaswegian and how it's translated to English. In late 1961, my parents met here in Toronto. They fell in love and were married in 1964. My mother has had an incredibly varied career. At various times, she was an administrative assistant, an early childhood educator, a department store clerk, a legal assistant, a Mary Kay Cosmetics salesperson, and she successfully owned and operated a store at the St. Lawrence Market that in its time served fresh pasta and, I would argue, the best espresso in all of Toronto. And I should know about espresso. I find it remarkable to consider that these two people from different countries, celebrating different faiths, with seemingly little in common, managed not only to find each other, but to find a path forward for their desire to do better, to plan and to dream together, and to build a life together. And when I think of all that my parents have achieved for themselves and for us, their 4 kids and their 8 grandchildren, it all comes back to that word I mentioned a second ago: opportunity. This province didn't necessarily make it easy for them because nothing was guaranteed, but it gave them a chance. It provided them with real opportunity, something that this province is renowned for doing. Opportunity to work, opportunity to own a home, opportunity to raise a family and ensure that that family was healthy and was learning because of publicly funded health care and public education. This is their story. But it is also a story that would be familiar to thousands of other people. I'm guessing most of you in this room today. People in every community across the province, the very people on whose shoulders we stand. Because this is the story of Ontario. And while this is something that we should be very proud of, it's not something that we can afford to be complacent about or to take for granted. In fact, as a government, we are working hard, again, to make sure that the kind of opportunity that was embraced by my parents is provided to more people living in more communities, regardless of their circumstances or background. The pursuit of sustained progress based on the continuous expansion of opportunity is what motivates Premier Kathleen Wynne each and every day. And that's evident from the decisions that she's made to strengthen healthcare and education, to build a more inclusive economy, and to see to it that no one who has the interest and the desire to succeed is denied their chance to do so. So much of the work that I am focused on in the realm of transportation, I believe also plays a pivotal role with respect to the achievement of this overarching objective. We all know that gridlock, the gridlock that's choking roads here in the GTHA, we know that it's inconvenient, but worse than that, we know that it impedes our economy, harms our environment, damages our quality of life, and limits our potential because it restricts opportunity. When our Premier asked me in June of 2014 to take on the transportation portfolio, her instructions were crystal clear. After too many years of too much underinvestment and endless debates that focused on process instead of progress, she insisted that we get shovels in the ground and actually build the seamless and integrated transit and transportation network that the people of this region desperately need. And that's exactly what we're doing. In just a few months, the Toronto-York Spadina subway extension will open, with trains running up to York University and up into Vaughan, to York Region, to the new Vaughan Metropolitan Centre, and Andy Byford has assured me today that we're on track to make sure that gets delivered in time. Right, Andy? No pressure, but... Working very closely with the extraordinary team at Metrolinx. And let me just take a very quick moment to say our chair of the board at Metrolinx, Rob Pritchard, is here. There's a fantastic table full of Metrolinx staff who are here. And even though he's not here, I want to take just a quick moment to acknowledge and say thank you publicly to Bruce McQuaig, who is leaving us shortly as the CEO of Metrolinx, for the outstanding work that he's done on behalf of this province. Working closely with this team, we are building GO Regional Express Rail, which will provide commuters with fast and frequent service on all corridors and will electrify core segments of our network. And we're extending GO Train service to both Bowmanville and Niagara Falls. We are currently building the Eglinton Crosstown. You all know this, the single largest public transit project in Ontario history, along with LRTs on Finch and Peel Region and in Hamilton, the Viva BRT in York Region, and we continue to support the Union Station revitalization. This is just a partial list. This is just a partial list of the work that we are currently involved in, currently leading on. In just a few short years, the transit system that we offer to commuters in every corner of the GTHA will be transformed. And for the first time For the first time, our residents will have reliable, accessible, and convenient options so that they can leave their cars at home. But even with the considerable progress that we are making, I know that we can't afford to stop. By 2041, the population of the Greater Golden Horseshoe is projected to grow by more than 4 million people. To me, this means that while we need to continue building for the short term, we have to simultaneously plan for what's going to be needed next. We can't stop. The Regional Relief Line, better connectivity to Pearson Airport and the Airport Corporate Centre, high-speed rail from Toronto to Windsor with stops in London and Waterloo. These are just some of the examples of the ambitious projects that will be potentially necessary for our mid to long-term transportation needs. And at the same time, and this is critical, at the same time we have to remain nimble in an effort to respond to the rapid pace of change and disruption that's occurring currently and will continue to occur in transportation. Everything from the impact of 3D printing and the impact that that will have on our goods movement industry, to how automated connected vehicles and on-demand transportation will affect our infrastructure, our current and future road capacity, and frankly, the very concept of vehicle ownership. Now, it would be a little bit impractical and probably more than a bit conceited for me to stand at this podium today and state that I, or anyone else, knows for certain what our transportation system will look like when my daughters, who are currently 9 and 5, are in their 40s, like I am now. But I do know this. We have to remain particularly vigilant at this critical moment in the evolution of the GTHA's transportation network, because the progress that's been achieved to date, while significant, is also fragile. Many in this room have known me for quite some time, and many in this room will know that I can be just as competitive under the right circumstances as the next politician, and I don't tend to shy away from the cut and thrust of partisan debate and discussion. I think that's okay. I think that's part and parcel of the job and the job description. In just a few weeks, we will be officially entering the final year of our mandate. And as you all know, discussions relating to transportation plans and transportation planning often make for easy targets on the electoral battlefield. I get that. More than getting it, I understand the rules of engagement. But in particular, as it relates to the future of transportation here in the GTHA and across Ontario, I believe that we have to hold those who are seeking support to account for offering up platitudes instead of legitimate plans. Over the past several months, Patrick Brown, the Ontario PC leader, has spoken more than once about what he would do if he was to be elected Premier in June of 2018. And he's referenced on more than one occasion what he would do differently, specifically on transportation, and that's fair. Mr. Brown has said repeatedly that as Premier, he would run transportation as if it was a business, and that's a quote. That he would root out waste, that he would deliver projects quicker and seemingly with less disruption. Now, I can see how that message would sound appealing. I really can. And I'm sure that we'll continue to hear this message played by him and by members of the Conservative caucus. Well, here's the problem. Ontarians have seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And nobody I know wants to see the sequel. When the Conservatives were last in charge at Queen's Park, when they were running transportation, building transportation, and planning transportation like a business, they chose to sell Highway 407 ETR to a foreign consortium, and they chose to kill and fill the Eglinton subway. We are still paying the price, literally, these many years later, for those disastrous decisions that they made. And in case you think here in this room that I'm exaggerating the risk, let me point out one more recent fact to you. Just a few days ago, in the wonderful community of Hamilton, a senior Conservative Party representative said publicly that he looks forward to fighting the next election campaign in Hamilton openly opposed or openly in support of killing the LRT project that we're trying to build right now. I'm not exaggerating this risk. If I've learned anything over the last nearly 3 years as Minister of Transportation, it's that we absolutely cannot afford to go backwards. It's that we have to keep building. We have to keep planning for today, building for today, planning for tomorrow, and keep that activity going. We have to be active participants, not merely spectators, and find creative ways to shape our future so that we are served by a transportation system that creates opportunity. This is what Premier Kathleen Wynne and our government are focused on, and this is what, with your continued support, we will most assuredly deliver. Thank you very much for having me here today.
So I have received a couple of questions, Minister, and they range from the kind and gentle to the cynical and tougher. So I'm going to give you the low ball one.
Can you name names on this one, Fred? Can you name
No,
names?
I will. So this one comes from the students, and Minister, this is not like...
I warned them not to make me look dumb up here.
No, this actually will make you... They're sucking up to you. And it starts off, Dear Minister, so you know it's not from the opposition.
That's why I made a beeline for that table and posed for a picture before I came up here to speak.
How do you think young professionals in the transportation field, such as ourselves, will best contribute to the country and province? And here's the PS. How can we become like you?
Oh. Wow. Thank you for submitting it just as I wrote it. I appreciate that. I do. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here today, and we had a brief moment to chat, and it's really encouraging and exciting for me to see that there's a group of young women and men who are so committed to making sure that not only that we get it right now, but that we're building for them, right? And really, I think we all know this, decisions that we're making in transportation, because the projects have a long runway, they have a long horizon, they're big, they're expensive, they take time. There's an old saying that suggests that most ministers of transportation don't get to do a groundbreaking and an official opening on the same project because they're big and because they take some time. So, you know, I would say not only do you have to continue to learn the profession, learn what you're learning currently at the University of Toronto, but you have to not be afraid to share your opinions and to advocate for the transportation system that you want to see for your future. I think too often in our system, and it's getting easier because we have social media, so it is easier for people to put their opinions out there for the good, and not always for the good necessarily, I would say. But don't shy away, don't shrink back, don't cower. If you know something to not necessarily be right or the right direction to go in, speak your mind. Be fierce about it, because really the decisions we're literally making today at MTO and at Metrolinx and amongst our municipal partners are decisions that will affect this region literally for the rest of my working life and much of your working life. So keep learning, keep pushing, and don't be afraid to speak your mind.
Thanks. So we have time. I apologize to everybody if we don't get to your questions, but I think that was intentional on the minister's part, so we couldn't get through all of them. I'm going to give you the polar extreme.
Okay.
Why do we have such a myriad of transportation agencies throughout the GTA, or I guess GTHA, and not one coordinated agency? And you mentioned Metrolinx, TTC, Hamilton. So
yeah, no, it's a great question. It's obviously not the first time I've been asked that question, and I can understand the perspective that somebody brings to the discussion when they suggest maybe we should have one transit authority running the entire region. And I'm not good at predicting the long-term future. I can't stand here today and tell you with certainty that will absolutely happen or that it will never happen. I think there's a natural evolution that we're going through right now. I think the really good news is that every single municipality in this region, broadly speaking, understands, and some have moved more quickly. Some were quicker or earlier adopters than others, but everyone gets it now. That alignment is completely there. Everybody wants to invest in transit. Everybody wants to work together. I think of the people that I represent in Vaughan who use York Region Transit, which is a great service, just like the other ones are. And what they tell me is that as a concept, while it might make more sense potentially to have one authority, what they care about most is that the bus that should be at their street at a certain time is there. that it's accessible, that it's affordable, that it's reliable. And I think whether it's TTC or it's another municipal transit system or it's GO, I think that's the work that we have to focus on right now. Keep building, keep aligning, keep partnering so that we're providing more and more service. And maybe some of the really brilliant people at the University of Toronto in that back corner 20, 30 years from now will be the ones standing up here, hopefully with more hair than I have, making decisions like that one. But it's a great question. I just think we have to focus more on the delivery of the service right now and all of the partnerships and the alignments, whether it's fare integration or some of the other pieces that are flowing as a result of this to build that network, and that's the work that we're doing right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Canadian Club Director and past President Jennifer Sloan to formally thank the Minister and to close the meeting.
Good afternoon. Minister Del Duca, on behalf of the Canadian Club of Toronto, I'd like to thank you for sharing details of your government's results to date and your continued ambitious plans. Travel, whether it's by road, highway, or public transit, is top of mind, particularly as our communities continue to grow. Access to reliable, affordable transit options while making sure that our roads and highways are safe are crucial for commuters. The ministry's plans to modernize the province's transportation infrastructure is good news on a number of levels. Not only does it help create jobs, it means that there will be relief for current transportation challenges. We're pleased to see that the government is committed to working with municipalities, local governments, and the public to make our communities better no matter where we live, ultimately creating that opportunity. Minister Del Duca, please accept our best wishes as you move forward with your exciting transportation plans and the government's agenda. Before we conclude, let me extend another round of thanks to today's event sponsor, Bruce Power. We'd also like to thank MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, and VVC for live streaming today's event. To learn more about the club, please visit us at canadianclub.org. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again soon, perhaps tomorrow. Have a good afternoon. Cheers.